Jason W. Martin, theologist, New South Wales, Australia, and we're going to look today at the 5 reasons women have affairs. The 5 reasons women have affairs. So let's look into this and see what we find in this troubled culture that we live in today. People misled away from the real value systems that are proven to work. 5 reasons women have affairs. Well, let's have a look, shall we? The stereotype is that men are the ones who sometimes become unfaithful and cheat. But our Melbourne cheating investigators are sometimes called in to discover whether a woman is having an affair too. Now, what I'd like the viewers to realise is this isn't uncommon. This is more prevalent than we realise. I've been through 2 marriages now where the women have strayed off for no legitimate reason except their own grievances which they couldn't resolve. Nothing really worthwhile for creating an affair. But the reasons women cheat can be more complicated and diverse than men. They don't always do it just because they can. They may have deeper reasons. Here's a table of contents: revenge, neglect and low self-esteem, boring sex life, that's interesting, wanting out, which is usually a lead up, and then emotional issues. I think emotional issues should be at the top. Possibly you might agree with that, but let's see with what happens. You might not agree. As a matter of fact, let's jump down to emotional issues. A woman can be emotionally fragile. She can also be, guys, emotionally damaged and emotionally out of order as well. Not everybody's got their emotions in check. And sometimes people's emotions can run away with them and become the master of the mind rather than the servant of the mind. Learning how to keep your emotions in order is not just something that falls out of the sky. It's something you need to work at. If her man is not giving her emotional assistance, now this is an interesting phrase. If her man is not giving her the emotional assistance that she needs. Now, this comes back to the way a person is parented. The partner of a woman's not meant to be a parent. The partner of a woman is meant to be a support. It's not the man's responsibility to be the navigator or the origin of the condition of her emotions. This sort of person needs a therapist, not a partner. The emotional assistance that a person needs is a given in any relationship. And if a man doesn't know how to do that, then of course this woman needs to leave. But we've got to ask ourselves, what type of people are these women choosing? They're choosing the chads, the tough guy, the man that's out of their league, but doesn't have the character to be able to emotionally nurture or manage or navigate, should I say, let's say navigate a woman in the way in which they see themselves and feel themselves. She might feel neglected. Now, in a lot of cases, if a person feels neglected, that doesn't automatically mean that's the case. There's a lot of deluded people out there that can make excuses that they're being neglected to find other options and things in life that they want. But, if she genuinely feels neglected and she's brought this up and the man's not responding to that, then she has got good reason to cancel the relationship. Now, you might say that's not Christian. Well, how much agony does a person have to live in before they go, this person isn't the right one for me? Problem being that a lot of things don't surface until after you're committed to somebody and there's no hiding or going back to your place to recover. A relationship's like a long-distance race, and it does wear at you. And if one or the other loses track of where the other person is emotionally positioned in the relationship, then feelings of neglect and all these other things can come to the surface and work detrimentally against the relationship. When somebody feels neglected and somebody else, some other man or woman bobs along and takes away that sense, this is often and can be the cause of somebody jumping the fence and having an affair. Or she might think that her partner doesn't love her anymore. Now, this has got an element of delusion attached to this statement, because it may not necessarily be true. It's just something that the person thinks. So we need to be well aware of what we're thinking and making sure it's in order, because if somebody doesn't love you anymore, there's no point staying with them, is there? But if somebody does love you and they are doing their genuine part for the relationship, and you just decide, and this happens, just decide that they don't, I've decided that you don't love me anymore, and the person's standing there going, well, I do, and I'm doing everything I can to be transparent about that, then you're dealing with what I believe is a serial case of somebody that didn't want really to go through the distance. And this is where you've got to be careful, because you meet people that are so damaged, and particularly when you get to my age, up around 60, you start meeting people that have got a trail of damage done to them from men or women, and it's hard for them to be rational long term with anybody, let alone themselves, because they've been so subtly and deeply abused. And so she might think that her partner doesn't love her, but that may not necessarily be true. And if it is true, it's time to leave anyway, or not as much as he used to. And again, this is where we begin to come into that place where we're resting on our laurels and not necessarily playing the part that we need to play in the relationship. I'll put that back there. So let's go back to number one. I thought, oh, hang on, so we've got more. If your wife is cheating, you need to do something about it. Well, that's common sense, isn't it? Don't just react with anger. If you want to fix your relationship, it will take time, forgiveness, and understanding. Just want to say, in a lot of cases, if a woman jumps the fence, she's already out of the relationship. She's gone. And if you... now here we come to your levels of self-esteem. If the situation's gotten where somebody's jumped the fence and they're, having sex and cheating with somebody else, and you want to resolve that, I believe that's a scarcity mindset, because sometimes our faithfulness and loyalty can blind us from the life that we're supposed to be living now. How many women have you seen try to stay with a bloke that's just a cheater, and they end up so worn out at the end of it, and years lost, that they can't get back? So it affects your health, your mental health, your physical health, affects children if you got them, affects all sorts of stuff. And it's just not acceptable behaviour. Yeah, it's forgivable, but it doesn't mean you have to stay in the environment where this kind of thing's continuing. I need to... yeah, you can have forgiveness and understanding, but that doesn't mean you justify what's going on. If somebody's cheating, it's like in a lot of cases, not all, but the majority, they ain't coming back. And if they do come back, they're going to make life hell for you. And you need to have the understanding to realise that this is a situation that you don't want to be in, whether you're male or female. People that cheat are damaging and they ruin everything around them, including themselves, and you don't want to be around that. If you have unconfirmed suspicions of cheating, get in touch with these people, go out and investigate, see, and they catch people cheating. Our Melbourne cheating investigators can give you more certainty about whether your woman is having an affair and support to help you work out what to do next. See, I wouldn't waste my time with that. If somebody's giving me a hard time, they're out. It's as simple as that. If somebody's starting to, if somebody's not an asset to you, get rid of them. Let them go. They're only going to destroy themselves and everybody else around them. If we come back to reason number one, it's revenge. And this is a pretty unchristian one, isn't it? Revenge. Women sometimes use sex as a weapon of marriage destruction. How do they do that? Their partner has already cheated on them and they want him to know exactly how it feels. Oh yeah, okay, so now we have a person that's cheated on a woman and she's thinking that if she cheats, it's going to show him exactly how it feels. But what she doesn't understand is it's only two wrongs don't make a right. And how to go out with a bang, as it were. And I think they're using a play on words there. Does her partner want her after another man has had her? In some cases you can, but it usually doesn't work out. Does the woman want out of the relationship, or does she want to get her partner's attention? Well, these are questions of individual cases, isn't it? I didn't think that was very informative. That's just a matter of two wrongs trying to make a right, which they won't. Number two, neglect and low self-esteem. Often, being a wife is a thankless job. Well, that depends on who she's married to and what environment she's trying to work in. I've met women that have had alcoholic and drug abusive husbands where their alcohol and drugs are more important than the woman. And this wears at a woman because they need attention and stuff and to be nurtured and looked after respectfully. But what happens is they come into these relationships with these people that are thankless and slowly adapt to it. And it's not until they're completely worn out that they start to realise that they're being taken for granted. Now, you can't put everybody in this box. I think at the moment women are more thankless than men. In most cases, men are grateful for the partner that they've got. And they're usually trying to deal with somebody that's not emotionally intact or characteristically intact. And as that person starts to unravel, you see these young boys and men running around trying to put it all together, but you can't. It's not your responsibility. And this is where our culture hasn't taught people to understand that you can't let your faithfulness and loyalty blind you from the reality of what's happening to you, the way somebody's treating you. And if it's out of order, you have got to cut that person off. Let them go and destroy themselves. I've seen people waste years trying to unravel another person's behaviour, and it's not fair and it's not right. And it wastes time and it wastes life and it damages children and everybody else involved. Assets get lost, money gets wasted. You know, this idea that being a wife is a thankless job, don't be a wife then. Really, because it is hard. It's not something you just waltz into and think everything's going to happen around you. Being a wife is a hard job, and it's rewarding if you've got the right attitude towards it. But if you're with a thankless person, a thankless man, then you should have noticed that before you got married. But see, people are chameleons. They know how to hide their flaws. But if you're with someone long enough, those flaws will surface, and then it's all too late. You're stuck in the middle of it. And of course, then you realise this person's just thankless, and that's damaging. Women don't want don't just take care of the children, but they run all... Now, this is an exaggeration because it may not necessarily be the case, but they run all the errands, clean the house. Well, cleaning the house and looking after the children, in most parts, is something that you think the woman would do. But I know many men that do help with the children and do clean the house. And they are also the ones who usually show up at the school meetings, depending on who these people... I've been in many school meetings where there's been both parents. So this is being a little bit too targeted. It's victimizing, making women out to be victimized by their partners. And in some cases they are, but not in all. It's necessary for men to appreciate their partners more and show them love and affection, the love and affection they deserve. Number 3, boring sex. Now, this can go both ways. In all honesty, both the men and women can be on the end of or give out boring sex. Men are not the only ones to get bored with a lack of sex or monotonous sex. Men need to let their women know that they love and need them. If they don't show them appreciation of worth, they might lose them to another man who is saying and doing all the right things. Now, this is a real critical point. I want to read that again. If they don't show them I'll bring that up. If they don't show them appreciation of worth, they might lose them to another man who is saying and doing all the right things. Now, this is a consequence of a woman thinking that being a wife is a thankless job. Now, when you're in a marriage, there are pressures that come with that don't come with casual relationships. And any man or woman can bob along at the right time and say all the right things and do all the right things, but they're not the one trying to pay the bills and the debts and look after the children and all the rest of it. And this is a fantastic deception of the devil. You can have a husband that's been ground and worn out over a 5 to 10 year marriage, but doing the best he can with the circumstances that are before him. And the woman's decided that this is a thankless job. And somebody's come along and's agreed with that. Oh, he's doing this, oh, he's doing that. And now they're undermining the man who's, given his life to the thing. And she's off in bed with another bloke because he's in a different space. I've had, in both instances, the woman whinge and complain, whatever it is that's wrong with them. They've had their house and the roof over their head and been provided for and all the rest of it, and decided that it's all too much and met some other bloke. And it's had nothing to do with what I was doing, because I wasn't doing them any wrong. I wasn't out gambling or being negligent or all this other stuff. And this is where interferences and things come in, and the devil has a field day of all this stuff. They might lose them to another man who is saying and doing the right things. We'll put that other man in the position over the duration that the husband or the partner's been in. As I said, anybody can waltz in and have all the right things to say and do all the right, give all the right attention, but they haven't been under the duress of the relationship that the man has that's trying to navigate it, if he's genuine and doing the right thing. And this is where these weak-willed people ruin the structure and fabric of family living, because they're basing their or running their relationship on their emotions, and the emotional assistance that she thinks she needs is now coming from another man or another woman, and it's all out of order because the emotions are out of order. because the person is, and they said it here, emotionally fragile. So we need to make sure that mental health, relative to the values that are needed and required for a relationship, are solid and not fragile, because these are the people that move across to another man or another woman who is saying and doing all the right things, but not carrying the responsibilities of the relationship. And this is a real bad one, because these people, the other person that comes along, end up ruining assets, children, and all this other stuff as the person in the family jumps on board with them. And usually they all end up on their own again anyway. Number 4, wanting out. Well, there could be many reasons, legitimate and illegitimate, for wanting out. Some women don't like the task of telling their partner or spouses that they have found somebody else. Nobody likes that. See, this is very secular, isn't it? It's very shallow in its presentation, isn't it? If somebody's got another person on the side, if they've monkey branched, they ain't going to run home and advertise it. They'll just wait till they get caught, or their behaviour will expose them. Or they just don't want, and look at this, or they just don't want to be married anymore. That's not what you sign up for at the altar. I'll marry you until I just don't want to be married anymore. That's what we're dealing with today. And that's why I don't think it's a healthy thing to be married at older people who have assets and things like that, because you'll get one of these drips, one of these emotionally, and that's what I'm going to call them, emotionally fragile drips, and they'll come and they'll destroy your assets. If you give them children, they'll take away your children. And basically, they're just a problem that you don't need, because they haven't got the emotional fortitude to stay in a marriage and navigate it. If things get too tough, guess what? They just don't want to be married anymore. Well, that's lovely, isn't it? We've gone all this way. You know, I've stuck by my vows and all the rest of it, and now you just don't want to be married anymore. It's incredible, and it's happening all the time. And there's people that will come alongside these people and encourage that to happen. Some will go to the extreme of having an affair as an easier way out. I've seen this twice in my own marriages. And neither of these people shared what they were doing. They didn't want to tell me what they were doing. Because that was their way of going, right, once he finds out I've done what I've done, the marriage will be over, which is what they wanted, because they didn't want to be married anymore, at least to me. They know their partners will probably not want to have anything to do with them afterwards, so they cheat. But that's not the answer, is it? That's not the answer at all. But this is what they do, isn't it? Let's put this back on. So these are some of the things that we're dealing with today, folks. And let's just be transparent about it. Love's an important thing, and it's not something to be played with. And this is the beauty of real Christianity or religions that value the sanctity of a partnership. Values are gone, aren't they? But not in all cases. There are many people reviving to the things that matter and to the things that are important. And I pray today that those who are suffering on the end of somebody that's ruining things that they promised they wouldn't, that you'll be okay, and it will be okay if you hang in there. It just takes time and understanding and learning about how damaging human nature is and can be. Ladies and gentlemen, like, follow, subscribe, share the page, share the whatever it is channel. But this is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Thank you for joining.